San Francisco is a city that embodies extremes. It's a place where cutting-edge innovation shares the streets with profound social challenges, where venture capital clashes with the harsh realities of urban life, and the eyes of the entire country are always watching. The task of governing here is a balancing act between ideals and the practical, between community needs and political pressure. It's a role defined by constant negotiation, intense scrutiny, and maintaining a connection to everyday people. On the debut episode of San Francisco Revival, we speak with outgoing Supervisor Hillary Ronen, who has spent over 15 years immersed in this very reality, working in and representing San Francisco's District 9, which includes the Mission, Bernal, and Portola. As her time on the Board of Supervisors comes to a close, we'll explore what it really means to lead with conviction in one of the most demanding urban environments in the country, the lessons she's taking with her, and her hopes for the future of San Francisco. This episode promises to offer perspective, honesty, and perhaps even a little levity. Recorded at Avanza 490, a 100% affordable housing development. Welcome to San Francisco Revival, a Mission Housing podcast. Supervisor Ronen, thank you for joining us on San Francisco Revival.
It's so great to be here. I love that you're back in this role, Chudog. We've missed you.
I love it. I love to try and be the best podcast host for the community that I can.
I love it. I love it. A jack of all trades.
Yeah, try. We sometimes organizers have to be, right?
Absolutely, all the time.
Yeah, yeah. So let's just kind of get into it, right? Like the big news that's still reverberating around the country, the outcome of the 2024 election. You know, interestingly enough, the start of your elected political career, I guess, started out the same day as Trump's elected political career back in 2016. You know, your first term coincided with his first term. So I'm kind of wondering what reflections you may have had being a supervisor in San Francisco, a city that painted itself as part of the resistance to the White House 8 years ago, and how that may have felt for you and some of your thoughts on that.
I'm still trying to tease that all out. I think I walk around like pretty much, well, half the country, but certainly a majority of San Franciscans sort of still a little bit shell-shocked on the results. We knew that this was a close election, but really taking in that we were going to go through another Trump presidency after all of the criminal indictments and verdicts, and just, you know, a lifetime of really not being a top-notch person, to say the least. It's really hard to see that half the country or a majority of the country who voted for him. So it is a gut punch. You know, I go through moments where I'm incredibly optimistic and excited, and I'll just see beautiful things in the community, and I'll remember that ultimately we all still have one another. We're going to have each other's backs during this time, just like we did the first time around. And then there are other moments where I, you know, like many people, I'm really scared. He's going to be a lot more prepared this time than he was last time. We were both brand new electeds in 2016. I know how much I've grown and how much I've learned and how much more effective I am. So that scares me when I think about Trump. You know, I mean, there's so much to say about that. Yes, San Francisco will still be a resistance. We will always be a resistance to forces that try to separate us based on, you know, our identity, based on our race, based on our immigration status, based on our economic status, based on our politics. You know, that's not what this city is all about. And I truly believe that no matter how we've changed as a city, that will continue in San Francisco. It's deep. That, it is, the details might change, but that fundamental respect that I think the majority of San Franciscans have for one another is not going away anytime soon. But it might take a different form than in 2016. I mean, you've already seen it. I've seen it. We've all felt it. We were a lot louder about being, loud and proud about being the center of resistance. And I think this time,
when there was a protest, either that same night or the night after.
Absolutely.
And this year I haven't seen
it's really quiet.
Much of anything.
It's really quiet. And I feel that too. And I think that, we're all feeling like we don't need to put any additional targets on our back. We don't need to poke the bear, which doesn't mean we're not working hard right now as we speak to prepare to protect our residents and our people. But I just don't know if it's going to take as loud of a form. I think you need to assess conditions at any given time, and you need to be smart in your tactics and strategies. And I for one, think that being just as bold, but being slightly quieter about it is the right move at the moment.
And you think that's going to be effective?
Well,
do you hope it's going to be effective?
There are enough people in local government that will fight with everything in them to protect immigrants, to protect poor people, to protect people with unpopular politics, to protect the transgender community, to protect. I mean, we will go to bat. And I don't know that we need to announce that really loudly. I think we can be more effective if we deliver that message through our community-based organizations, through our religious communities, through our school networks. We can make sure that we're delivering that message to the people without broadcasting, loud and clear all of our strategies. I think we need to be twice as smart and twice as organized this time around than we were last time around.
Yeah. What advice do you have for the incoming batch of supervisors? We have a new mayor, on how to actually be a resistant city in the new presidential era?
It's hard. San Francisco's political environment has always been really a unique and hard place. So I don't want to sound Pollyannish or unrealistic knowing how the city functions. But I do think, and this happened last time around, but I do think, when we have Trump in the presidency or someone with values that are so different from our own, that we have to work together better and more than we do, when there's someone who's more aligned. The differences between us in San Francisco politically rear their ugly heads really, really strongly, usually under Democratic presidents and less so under Republican. And not to say that there's not big differences, there are. But I just think at this moment, we're going to be back to basics for a while, and we're going to be in, defensive protection mode. And usually that means that we need to be as united as we can possibly be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that can't be understated or overstated enough.
Yeah,
really, especially because the larger political spectrum is quite wide.
Yes,
but the political spectrum in the city, I mean, oftentimes it feels quite wide.
Yeah,
but it's actually a lot more narrow.
Yeah.
And maybe, hopefully, the opportunity,
especially on identity issues. I think there's a lot of differences between us on economic justice issues. I think identity issues, there's less. I don't think a single person, elected official in San Francisco, does not think it's important to protect the immigrant members of our community or the queer members of our community or well, I mean, when it comes to poverty, I mean, we see some real differences
Yeah.
around people experiencing homelessness, but around, again, the identity issues were pretty on the same page, choice over our own bodies, things like that. But when it comes to economic issues, poverty, that's where the differences lie. But again, that difference isn't as large as it is with the Republican Party.
Yeah. And with, the hope is with good grassroots organizing, maintaining that pressure on elected officials to work together on this, right? And also actually put the needs of the most vulnerable people with this upcoming administration forward.
100%.
Yeah.
The best elected official on planet Earth is nothing without a organized community fighting to push her forward and to keep her honest.
Yeah.
Not honest in terms of corruption, but honest into why, she or he decided to run for office in the first place. I mean, I can't tell you how many politicians I have seen in the 15 years I've been in City Hall, first as a legislative aide and then 8 years as supervisor, who come in, I'm here to fight for the community. And, by the time they're climbing up the ladder, you don't recognize them. So that it's really important to have a strong, organized community that makes sure politicians remember who put them in office and who they were when they started.
Yeah. And to not use San Francisco as like a building block for people's political careers, right?
Exactly.
Which, I mean, sometimes it's hard to stop and hard to cite, but we try and hold people accountable nonetheless.
Absolutely.
Kind of talking a little bit about your time in office and your political career. So outside of, let's say, resisting what may come out from the White House and, well, Congress as well with the capture of that house, what do you think the city's biggest priority should be moving forward?
It's a great question. It's poverty. It's poverty. And it's hard, right? Like right now at this moment, what is weighing heaviest on my mind is how do we protect our immigrant community? Because Trump is on the TV and radio every second saying the first thing he's going to do on day one is conduct the biggest deportation that's ever happened. So right now I have immigrants first and forefront of my mind. But in general, I think the biggest issue in our city and in our nation is poverty. And I mean, and then there's the environment, there's so many important issues. The inequality in San Francisco, the amount of people living in poverty in this world, there seems to be more and more billionaires every single day, but the average person is living worse off than they did, decades ago. And so there's something deeply wrong about, how we tax in this country, our social safety net or lack thereof, and how much people are suffering. I mean, when you have thousands of children in the school district that are homeless, when you have, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of working class people who work 2 minimum wage jobs and still can't pay the rent, your society is broken. Yeah. That's called a broken society. And that was that is and was the case under Biden, and that is and will be the case under Trump. And I don't think that reality, it could get worse, but I don't think it's not like that changes that much. I mean, the bottom line is we had a broken system before Trump. And so where we've been failing is speaking to the majority of people in this country and making them feel that any party or any, politicians are genuinely, truly understand the way that they live, which is so hard. Every day is a struggle. And then showing that they have a way to do something about it, can deliver and care about them. I mean, that's why I feel we lost this election, is because the average working class person just doesn't feel supported by either party, and feels like under either party, it's the billionaires that have the access. It's the corporations that, have the most voice over the regulation. And, there's a Democrat in office right now supporting a genocide that is breaking every single law in the country and internationally, who's just kind of shrugging their shoulders about it. This is not inspiring to young people. It's not inspiring to working class people, and that's got to change.
Yeah. How do you think San Francisco, well, maybe not how you think we got here, but how do we reconcile with the rhetorical values that we espouse often, and the real public poverty that exists in the city, and is seemingly, at least, growing?
Yeah, I mean, it's complicated because, I think, like, I'm so glad you're doing this podcast, for example. I think our media is broken. I mean, there are so many broken institutions in this country that are broken here in San Francisco, just as they are nationally. I mean, I think sometimes, like, let's take Dean Preston's election, right? Dean Preston, one of the most progressive members of the Board of Supervisors, just lost when his opponent not only used Dean's entire platform, but would lie and say, that Dean was against projects that Dean created. I mean, it's like, it makes no sense. And yet the press was 100% against Dean, right? Because they have painted him over the years as an out-of-touch democratic socialist who, wants to, destroy San Francisco, right? If you look at what Dean does every day, and worked closely with him, he was working to provide affordable housing, to make sure that people have access to health care, to make sure that the public schools were robust and strong. Like, he is not the enemy, right? But despite the fact that his opponent used his own policies and his own work to bash him, and yet espouse those same policies, I mean, that truly happened in the District 5 election. So we have a lot of work ahead of us. So it's not even, the cognitive dissonance between saying, San Francisco's the city of, justice and caring about the forgotten, and then all of the public officials saying, let's sweep up people off the street and that are experiencing homelessness and throw them in the trash. Like, it's not that simplistic. I mean, it goes even deeper, where people just can say that if they have the political power, if they have the papers behind them, and the media behind them, they can lie outright. I think this was, something that Trump taught politicians. You can just straight out lie, and as long as the media will echo and carry that message, it doesn't matter. You get away with it, and you can win or you can lose based on those lies. So again, we've got our work cut out for us.
What does that work look like? Like, it's, we can point to either community-based solutions for these, right? But to bring that to scale, even of a small city like ours.
Yeah.
Because, like, it's it's the way, let's say a way to combat this is you're in community with your folks.
Yeah.
Your decision making is also based on the well-being of other people who
Yeah.
are around you, who can maybe talk about these things, not just hear from a politician and believe it and then move on with whatever the reality that you're living in is.
Yeah.
Assuming, like that is difficult to bring to scale. And even a podcast like this is, relatively small.
Yeah.
Don't forget to like and subscribe if you're listening. So like, how do we, like, what is the way out?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have the answer to this. I mean, I think we're all asking ourselves that very question right now. I'll say some components of it that I believe are components of it. I'll have to say there's been many times where I've been disappointed with the labor movement. That in the past, I have seen the labor movement really care about not only serving the narrow interests of their members and lifting up their salary and power in the workplace, which is crucial, but also caring about social justice and leading and contributing to the fight for the whole community. And I have just seen that happen less and less. And it's really problematic because, sadly, nonprofits are still dependent on, foundation funding from rich billionaires and government funding. And there's a lot less independence in terms of being able to organize. I mean, very little, organizing is actually funded in the nonprofit movement. And so labor is really the only independently sort of funded machine that has played a major role in social justice movements. I mean, not the only. We have, religious movements. We have, or faith movements. We have, I guess faith movements really being the other one. And I just haven't seen as much of that lately. And I think that's a problem. And I think we need to look at that and go backwards. And then, there are people trying to build, real meaningful alternatives to the Democratic Party, or at least real movements within the Democratic Party that are much more focused on serving the people. The Working Families Party is an example of that. And then, we need to see, as much organizing in community as everywhere in our schools, in our churches, in our synagogues, in our mosques, and in our neighborhoods, in our Democratic Party, small Democratic clubs. I mean, all over the place. We have to organize, and we have to, make sure that everyone's participating in trying to create the world that we want to see, because, especially when it comes to the environment, we're getting to a point of no return. And if we want to fight for our children, and I think COVID showed this, and protect them, then that doesn't mean just fighting for our own children. That means that we have to be part of a healthy communities. We're going to go down together or we're going to survive. And I really had hoped that COVID would have taught us that lesson, because it was right there in front of us. And it did for a minute, and then it kind of went away. I mean, we went from, this strong Black Lives Matter movement that was inspirational and felt like the first time in since slavery. Well, no, of course we had the civil rights movement, but since the civil rights movement, for sure, that our generation, I'm a little older than you guys, but your generation has seen an uprising in that way. And then it was like the top of everyone's mind one day, and then just dissipated the next, to the point where now it's all incarcerate, jail, arrest, all the same rhetoric that preceded that movement. And so, we've got to stick to it. We've got to keep fighting, stick to it, find the energy, find the resources, find the structures to organize.
Yeah. And have the right multi-year strategy for it, right? I think one of the benefits, if we can call it a benefit, of going through a first term already against a White House that is so openly against a lot of the values that we have here in our policies is that we can think more strategically about it, right? We can do instead of a reaction that's loud and immediate, there can be a response that hopefully ends up being a little bit more effective.
Yeah, I mean, I think we all now know that, I think the first time around we thought, oh, this guy is, we're not going to take him seriously. He's a joke, like he says a lot of stuff, but is he really going to do it?
Mm-hmm.
And this time we're like, he's saying he's going to do this stuff. We believe him. We're going to prepare proactively, right?
Yeah.
So I think we have a different attitude about it.
Yeah. And there's a lot more power on the federal side with the White House and Congress and the Supreme Court.
It's terrifying.
Yeah.
If I think about it too much, I start to panic. So I have to kind of keep it at bay. I know that this is happening. I'm going to look at my local community and support the people around me.
Perfect place to transition.
Yeah.
You were talking about like kids, future, the youth, to your own kid.
Yeah.
And your time in office, one thing that was very clear, and what I think myself and a lot of other people in the district and around the city saw, is that you are a working mom.
Yeah.
At almost every single event that I saw you at, that you were speaking, your child was either pulling on your leg, trying to go home, or you were carrying your kid while you had the microphone.
Yeah.
How did you juggle and balance being a mother of a small child and being an elected official, a leader in one of the most important cities in America?
It was really hard. I first want to just thank so much the people of District 9, because I think the people of District 9 really gave me a break on that. I am not the type of supervisor that goes to every event. And I recognize that that's a major part of the job, right? You want your supervisor to be there and be visible. And throughout my whole 8 years, if there's one thing I felt guilty about a lot, is I was not that supervisor that was at every event. And I had just decided that my kid is my priority first and foremost, and being a mom is the most important thing to me in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not going to miss her whole childhood. And if that means that I'm going to go home, 4 out of 5 nights a week, or I should say 6 out of 7 nights a week, to have dinner with my child, that means I'm missing a lot of events. And I mean, many of my colleagues, especially those without kids, go to events every single night. They work all day, they go to events, and oftentimes several. And so I really want to say on this podcast, thank you, District 9. Thank you for giving me a break. Thank you for understanding that I was a mom and allowing me to prioritize my kid and still giving me 2 terms in office. Like, I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. The people that didn't criticize me for that, because believe me, I felt guilty all the time. But I really think that's an important thing to realize, that if you want parents in office, and I hate to say this, but especially mothers in office, then they're going to be, probably at less events, or they're going to be at an event distracted because their kid is driving them crazy and wanting to leave. And I think that was the hardest part. But having said that, being an elected official is also, incredibly privileged position, because unlike workers at minimum wage jobs, you control your own schedule for the most part. So it was incredibly flexible on the other hand. So on the flip side, for me being able to run in the middle of the day, I volunteered at my daughter's school, Flynn Elementary School, every Friday teaching art classes with a grandma, Kuka, of one of the other kids in the class during, 7 years, I think. And having the flexibility allowed that. So it was really a mixed bag. I had so much privilege compared to many other parents who have no flexibility in their workplace. And then I had, and then I didn't do part of my job as well as I should have because I wanted to be home with my daughter. So, it was both. I had both the strain and the privilege. But what I will say is that I always thought the most important thing was doing the work of legislating, protecting, and fighting for resources for my district. That I did with everything in me.
Yeah.
It was the events that I would give myself an F on in terms of participating.
We've seen you at plenty.
Thank you. I obviously you can tell how much guilt I feel about it.
And appreciate the times that you did come out and bring your kid, and we obviously appreciate your kid also
Thank you.
being at being at a lot of events, and I'm sure it's not easy for them as well.
Although I have to say, every time I said I'm excited, because I've been in this office for 15 years. So every time I say I'm excited to move on, I'm a little burnt out. I want to contribute to my community in some other way. If my daughter hears me say that, she yells at me. She loved that I was the supervisor. Like, she felt like it was the coolest thing in the world, and she loves City Hall. And she says that she's dyslexic. And so she tells me, the other day, she's like, Mom, I'm going to be the first dyslexic president. And I told her, well, you might have Gavin Newsom beating you out on that one. And she was like, no, Mom, I'm going to be the first woman dyslexic president. I was like, okay, you go, girl. So, she loved it.
And she seems to be inspired by
Definitely.
Seeing you, by watching her mom be a leader in San Francisco.
Absolutely. So, my whole family is so grateful. So grateful that we had this experience. It was the hardest and best experience I think I've ever had, and I think probably I will ever have in my life.
We'll get to what's next for Hillary Ronen in a few more questions down. But seeing as your kid has some political aspirations.
Yeah. At 12.
Yeah. How do you talk to them about the current state of our city and maybe what they might be seeing on the news about what's happening around the country as well?
Well, first, I always think for parents, we need our kids' minds are not, fully developed yet. So we need to make them feel safe. If they don't feel safe, then we're not doing our basic job as parents. So the first thing, I do is constantly say, we're safe, you're going to be fine. And then I try to explain, we are a, upper middle class white family. So the privilege that we have is different from so many people in the community. So I think, we probably are safe as a family, but many people in our communities and many of our neighbors are not. So I try to start developing that, consciousness in her. Because, my daughter lives a very privileged life, and she lives a more privileged life than I did growing up because I grew up in a working class household, and she doesn't. She's growing up in a very privileged household. And so I'm trying to make her aware of that as much as I can. I think you can only, she doesn't have the same financial stress as both my husband and I had growing up. And you don't want your kid to have financial stress and to feel that, but their reality is going to look different from yours in terms of your values and how you grow up. And so I think my husband and I, we do the work that we do very much because we've lived the experience of being financially worried. And Maelle's not going to have that experience growing up. So we really try to develop that consciousness in her to the best that she can understand it. And then she's such a sweet kid. She always has been. She was just born this way, where she's incredibly generous. And, incredibly empathetic and loving of those around her. I mean, we didn't develop that in her. Like, that was just her from the get-go. She would always give away her stuff, and so we just encourage that leadership and that attitude that she has. And we tell her that those are the things we're proud about her, is the fact that she's such a good friend, that she stands up for people if they're being bullied, that she looks out in the community about who she can help, instead of being proud about getting good grades or like the other things. So that's how we're parenting. But who knows, you're about to be a parent, Chirag. It is not easy.
I am not thinking it's going to be easy either, and I'm not going to know how to do it until you try to do.
You just try to do the best you can every day, and you're like, please, I hope I'm not messing up this little malleable being, who has a personality all their own, and you want them to be themselves, but you also want them to have values like you have, and it's push and pull all the time.
Yeah, and there's so much you can't control, right? Of
so much.
Who they're going to show up as, who they're going to develop as, how they're going to take anything we say, right? Are they going to think it's good? Are they going to feed off it? Or are they going to then rebel?
100%.
Thankfully, I'm having two at the same time. So even if I get one rebel, maybe I'll get one who's stays on my side of thinking about the world.
Absolutely.
And like they're they're not going to live a life anywhere near like that I live, right?
Yes.
Like, and one of the things I tell my wife as a half joke and kind of not a half joke is, once they get old enough, I'm just going to drop them off in the TL. That's where I grew up. And I'm going to drive a few blocks away and be like, just meet me across the neighborhood. Just walk it alone, right? And then you'll get...
How old do you think that they'll have to be now before they're born?
I think now my answer would be a lot younger than when they're on.
That's what I'm asking.
So,
what do you think?
I feel like I'm going to sound like a bad parent if I give a number too low. But I was thinking, honestly, 11?
Yeah.
That's fair enough. They could be...
Yeah.
There are kids younger walking around the city, going to school by themselves, hopping on public transportation by themselves.
But I'll
reevaluate in a few years.
I mean, that's what I think about all the time when I'm in the Tenderloin. I just think about the kids. So, I mean, way more than I do about this, but I really don't like what those kids are witnessing every day of their lives, even though I don't love the solutions that are coming out of room 200 on that either. But it's not okay for kids to be living in that environment every day. It really, really upsets me.
So prior to being elected supervisor, you were chief of staff to David Campos and in his office, the previous District 9 supervisor.
Yeah.
So you've been in politics, 15, 20 plus years before that. You were obviously doing a lot of community work and like fighting for people through that.
Yeah.
So within politics, like, how has all that time changed you as a person?
Oh, it's changed me a lot. I am both the exact same person that I was when I came in and completely different. I have to say my sort of analysis of what's happening in society and what's wrong, and my passion for fixing it has not changed at all. I'm sad to say, the inequality, corporate control of our democracy, broken broken money in politics, broken tax system, way too little money going to the public school system, absence of a robust social safety net, which is wrong. All of those things, same, like nothing's changed there for me in the past 15 years. What's changed is the breadth of my tactics and strategies that I use to make change in what I believe is a positive direction. My willingness to work with people that I don't agree with, And I think maybe I'm being harsh, but I think my maturity level, I'm more mature than I was 15 years ago. When I came into this job, I was straight out of law school. I went to La Raza Centro Legal in the Mission District. I worked with the San Francisco Day Labor Program and Women's Collective for 6.5 years, and we were a radical community-based organization that believed that that people that were being oppressed should be at the forefront of leading the fight for change, and that my role as an attorney and an ally was to back them up behind the scenes, and that's what I did for 6.5 years at La Raza. And then when I came into local government to work for David Campos, who himself was became incredibly successful after growing up in South Central Los Angeles as an undocumented queer kid from Guatemala. I felt like I was doing that same thing, only I was backing the brilliant politician who was fighting for his people. But I came in just like, community's always right. Politicians usually suck. There's one way of getting things done, which is to fight, and I was like, they're the enemy, we're the good ones, and we've just got to, just battle our way through and make change. And today, it's everything. There's very little black and white. I hardly see any black and white. I think everyone is incredibly complicated. I have some some bright lines. Like, if you lie to me, I'm kind of done with you. I don't think it's necessary to lie. You can disagree with me all you want. Just be honest about where you stand. But I feel like my whole second term, the way that I got most of the work done for poor folks and for the Mission District was by working with London Breed, who is my political adversary in many ways. We don't see eye to eye in our assessment of the world or the way things are. But it's often possible to find common ground. And I felt like it was so much more useful, especially during the pandemic, where everyone was, so scared and so isolated. And I think she did a really good job, protecting us from this really scary illness. And I think she did care about the Latino community that was getting the sickness and dying at rates that were much higher than any other community. And when I saw that, I was just like, I'm going to work with her. I'm not going to work against her when she's doing the right thing. And I think that, and, both of us were really upset by how long the schools were closed. I'll never get over that. That was a situation where I didn't agree with the left. I actually agreed with the mayor on that one. And I thought it was insane. Like, nowhere else in the world did they close public schools for 1.5 years. And I disagreed with the union on it. I disagreed with all my, my typical allies. And so, it started to complicate everything for me. Like, this isn't, none of this is easy. None of this is clear cutter or simple. And so I really started working with the mayor, and then I learned a lot about that, about working with with someone that you don't agree with on many things, but working together well on the things you do agree. And I think that started just changing the way I do politics, and the way that I look at the world. And I think I've been more successful for it, which doesn't mean that my, radical lefty spirit has subsided at all. In fact, I think it's stronger than ever. But I just feel a lot more sophisticated in the way that I get real material change done for the people that I will have dedicated my entire life to fighting for, and will continue dedicating my life to fighting for.
Yeah. Any decisions or strategies you'd like a redo on?
Yeah, that's interesting. With hindsight, hell yeah.
Yeah.
But at the time, you have to make decisions based on what you've got in front of you. So without going into details, you don't always know how things are going to end up. And you make the best decisions you can, knowing what you know in the moment. But yeah, knowing how things ended up, I would have changed a bunch of political decisions that I've made.
Mm-hmm. Where are you finding hope these days?
Mm-hmm. Really close to home, like I'm finding hope in my husband and my daughter and my friends and in my neighbors and in my community and my coworkers and like right here in this room. I mean, it's really close, right? I feel like if I start to look broader, it's like what you said when you said now it's different because it's Trump and they have Congress and they have the courts. I'm like, I like panic sets in. And so instead I'm like, in my neighborhood and in my city and in my community, like we're going to have each other's back and we're going to protect each other. And that's so beautiful. I mean, the other day I, wrote this on Facebook because it was I had such a strong reaction. We have one car in my household, and my husband was away at a conference and had the car, and so Maëlle and I had to wake up super early, and we had to take the bus to her carpool meetup spot, and so we were like 6:30, in the street walking. We got coffee and goodies at the Martha Brothers store on Cortlandt, and then we got the 67, went over the hill and laughed and talked and smiled at everyone in the bus. And the bus driver said, "Good morning, how are you?" And then we were right in front of her old school. Her carpool picked up spot is right in front of Flynn Elementary. And the crossing guards, who have literally been doing this work at Flynn, getting up at this early hour for at least a decade, because I mean, I've seen them there for close to a decade, gave Maëlle a big hug, know her really well, know her by name, ask how she's doing, protect her walking across the street. And, the teachers, these amazing public school teachers are walking in. And I just got this feeling like, oh my gosh, the public sector is amazing, and Elon Musk and that other weird guy that Trump just appointed to gut the public sector, are going to be one of the biggest battles in front of us. And just the joy that librarians, nurses, bus drivers, firefighters, public school teachers, the people that make all our beautiful public parks available. I walked home, up Bernal Hill and just looked out over San Francisco, and I was just like, gosh, the public sector is so important. The people that need to be at the forefront of this fight is all these incredible public sector workers that look out for us every single day. And we're going to just have to band together and save the parts of the system that work. Because I started off talking about everything that's broken, but everything I just talked about was our public sector that's working, and we've got to save those parts of the system, that Trump's gonna really work to dismantle. Trump and his what they call him, Uncle Elon now, I guess, that they're gonna try to dismantle. We've got to save that, and then we've got to fix the parts of the system that are broken.
Yeah. I mean, crossing guards, librarians,
best people ever.
Yeah. I mean, and it's like you can actually live out what a public good looks like from the institution.
Yeah.
Cross guards for the revolution.
Yeah. Oh, I love crossing guards. So the crossing guards at Flint Elementary have been there for over a decade. We used to bring, for example, a Christmas present every year to the crossing guard because she's always there, always protecting my daughter crossing the street. And she started giving us Christmas presents back. And we're like, no. We want to give you a Christmas present because you protect us every day. We don't protect you. And she did. She gave Christmas presents out to every family that gave her Christmas presents. I mean, these people are so generous and amazing. It's just beautiful. That's where I get.
Yeah. Sometimes the people we don't deserve.
Exactly.
All right. What's next for Hillary Ronen?
Yeah. So I've got some fun plans and some exciting plans. And then I've got some plans that I'm trying to make a reality, and I'm not sure if they will. I'm a little anxious. The working class part of me, my working class roots, I have never not earned a paycheck in my entire life because I'm scared. Like, I go into panic mode if I'm not earning a paycheck. So I've never been unemployed because I've had my job lined up for the second the other job was going to end because of my insane anxiety around it. Like, it's my childhood issues, right? And so I don't have a job lined up, and I see all my childhood little Hillary panic kicking in, and I'm trying not to freak out. But I am trying to put together a project for, this is the first time I'm saying this publicly, where I have gotten really interested in living in San Francisco in the Bay Area on how artificial intelligence and the monolithic, huge, powerful tech companies are rapidly changing our world. And I think our world in 10 years, 20 years, 30 years is going to look completely different from the world that we have today. I think this technology is unbelievably powerful, and it is advancing and moving really, really fast. And I don't think we're ready for it. And so all of the issues that I've worked on my entire career, immigrant rights, the reforming the criminal justice system, trying to give more power to the people and less corporate power, housing, affordable housing, privacy, environmental rights, all the things, everything we care about, public education system, it is all going to be challenged and touched by AI.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I would like to do is be part of an emerging movement that is very brand new to try to build countervailing forces and structures to take on big tech. I'm not scared of robots taking over the world like in the science fiction movie. I'm not scared of that. What I'm scared of is these billion-dollar corporations that are amassing more and more power and control, taking over states, and having more power over governments in our world than states. And I think that's real. I think it's a threat, and it's realistic. And I think we need to start making sure that doesn't happen. I believe in democracy. I believe in government. And I'm really, really worried that's under threat, because these companies are so huge and they have so much ownership and control over the technology that's dominating society, and by the infrastructure, and that's what I want to work on. So there are movements that are forming and building. They've been very focused at the federal and state level in terms of regulation. And there's been much less work at the municipal level, which is my area of expertise. And so I kind of want to hopefully be part of that movement and work on local strategies. And I'm trying to see if I can kind of create a project or a job for myself in this area. And then also, I am going to spend a year in Spain.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, my husband is half Spanish. He has dual citizenship, Spanish and American. His dad spends half the year in Spain. And so, we've spent our whole life in the movement, and we're exhausted. And so we're going to live in the Canary Islands for a year, starting in the summer of next year. And so I'm hoping I can work part-time while I'm there and really recharge, and then come back and see what's next for me. But those are my sort of short-term plans, which I'm really excited about.
Nice. Well, good luck on any ventures, AI related. I mean, it's interesting because the corporate takeover of state apparatus is not new.
No.
Right? They're using current companies might be using new technologies to do so, but this goes back to at least pre-colonial times, right? Even with the British East India Company being a private company that went and colonized on behalf of the government, or which then they later got taken over by the government. So yeah, it is, I mean, unfortunately, a real fear in terms of the macro and how it impacts the micro.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, for the first time, for example, like some of these companies, Microsoft and Google, they're trying to, revive nuclear power plants that have been shut down because these large language models, that are behind all the generative AI and the Chat GPTs, Claudes of the world, they require so much energy to function that we're not, these victories we've had in the past, moving towards cleaner, safer energy are being, coal power plants are being restructured. I mean, so everything from the environment to, some of the technology right now, there's an organization on the border called Mi Gente that is trying, to fight Palantir from developing technology that ICE is using to more efficiently locate and deport immigrants. I mean, it touches on everything that we care about. Contracts, AI technology used to identify potholes on the, bottom of cars is being used to identify homeless encampments to make sweeps more, more easier and faster. So, it's everywhere. And we need to figure out, it's not I think some of the technology is really exciting. I don't think it's all negative by any means, and especially in the healthcare arena, I think AI is going to help us find cures to diseases. So, I believe that it's not that I'm against the technology, as a rule. I just believe that we should be building technology that's truly good for society and people, and not what's profitable for, a handful of billion-dollar corporations.
Yeah.
And I want the voice of people deciding what technology gets built and not see this as inevitable.
Yeah. Makes a lot of sense. All right, I want to take the next few minutes and close out the interview with some fun questions.
Yay.
I want to kind of put you on the spot.
Okay.
A lot of these.
Okay.
We're going to try rapid fire.
Okay. I'll do my best.
Time on the Board of Soups.
You're sorry, but I'll do my best.
Who's the best dressed supervisor?
Oh, God.
Or mayor?
London's got swag, that's for sure. But the first person who comes to mind when you say that is former Supervisor Jane Kim. Like, I don't think we have a Jane Kim in today's Board of Supervisors. We're not like the top dressers, I have to say.
Did you approve of Supervisor Campos's bow ties?
Oh my God, you're gonna get me in trouble, T-Dog.
No one's gonna listen this deep into the podcast anyway, so no problem. We'll send a snippet of this.
It's not my favorite thing in the world, I have to say.
We're gonna cut this part out, and and then we're gonna send it to him. We're gonna send it to him, so he can get here.
But as my daughter would say, one of the most insulting things my daughter has ever said to me, she's like, "Mommy, I want to be just like you when I grow up. I want to be a mommy. I want to be a supervisor, except I want to be a fashion girl, just a little different from you." So, I'm not sure I'm really the best person to judge fashion.
Who can't keep a secret?
Who can't keep a secret? On the board?
Yeah. There's a person.
I would say, there's a few that can't keep a secret. I would say Asha Safai has quite a big mouth. I don't know. I'm just going to Myrna Malgar. She's not the best with secrets either.
Yeah. It's good to know. 2 more left. Who's the funniest board member?
Oh, great question. Well, I just found out Shaman Walton is a stand-up comic, and
What?
who knew? I had no idea. I'm going to his first live comedy show this Friday. In fact,
Really?
yes, it is, let me see if I can find, it's at Palantir. Do you know where that is?
I
Um,
think so.
it is, sorry, I'm finding it because I'm going to find out if he is the funniest member of the Board of Supervisors. I think Peskin can be pretty funny. He's pretty quick. I think Raphael Mandelman, you wouldn't know it, but he is hilarious. And I sit next to him in the Board of Supervisors, so he always makes little comments that make me giggle. Yeah, so there's a lot of good, funny members of the board. Okay, wait. Pirata at 16th and Potrero.
Well, okay.
Shaman Walton at 8 p.m. is doing, well, this will probably air.
Taking the stage.
But is taking the stage. So I'm going to find out if he is the funniest supervisor or not.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's really good. Did not take him for a stand-up comic.
Neither did I.
Good to see
I
that.
found this out very recently, and I'm going, when's your next show? I'm there.
All right, last one before we get you out of here. You're going to political trivia.
Okay.
Who are the top 3 people you're picking on your team?
Oh, there's no freaking question. President Aaron Peskin. The guy's memory is insane, and he knows everything there is to know about political history in San Francisco. I don't even need another member. Like,
not even another member. You get 2 more. You can keep them vacant.
Okay. I'll take Aaron Peskin, which I think just like me and him. I mean, I would. He would win hands down. Former Mayor Willie Brown. I mean, his memory too is insane. And the third would be, who would be my third person? I need a woman to be on this team with me. I would say, I guess I would take, Myrna with me.
Okay.
Yeah, Myrna, Willie Brown, Aaron Peskin,
Wow.
and myself.
That's a
We
table.
would win. It would be impossible to beat us, mostly because of Aaron Peskin, but it would be impossible to beat us. Yeah.
Well, there you go. San Francisco's political trivia crack team. Hillary Ronen, Willie Brown, Aaron Peskin, and Myrna Melga.
Yeah. Wipe the team.
Yeah. And with that, I want to thank you, Supervisor Ronen, for coming on San Francisco Revival. Appreciate the time.
Thank you. It's really fun.
Appreciate the conversation. This was great.
Yay. Thank you.